This is Bill McMinn from Eagleville Bible Church, and this is the Way to Go podcast, where we talk about faith, family, and daily life, putting the Bible into practical, everyday terms. Welcome to the Way to Go podcast. I'm Bill McMinn, along with Eric Barfell, our youth pastor, and a couple of different things we want to talk about. The two podcasts we had to do, and one is Halloween, because this podcast is going to be out on October 30th, so 31st the next day, and Halloween is one of those, seems to be a debatable holiday in Christianity. And where I grew up, actually, there was no debate about Halloween. That was free pillaging of the neighborhood for candy.
Yeah, right.
You grab the paper bag from the A&P or Acme, whatever, grocery store bag you had. You took off out the door in your costume that you went down and figured out from the local Five and Dime.
Right.
And when it got dark, you turned out in the street with everyone else. And it was always on October 31st. It was never like, hey, the community's having a special trick-or-treat day
before or something.
No, it was always right on the day. And
I think you're right. I think that's how it was for me as a kid. I lived in a neighborhood across there was a pretty busy road across there. Was a couple of neighborhoods, so we'd try to go do both or something. Same kind of thing.
It's so it fascinated me because I went to a Bible preaching church. Never heard one thing, not one negative thing about Halloween. No one ever thought about it. My dad was super conservative Christianity. I went to a Baptist college. And these guys, I'm telling you, you couldn't even listen to Keith Green at that college. That's how strict they were. No rock music, no dancing, no movies. You had to sign a thing. I wouldn't go to see movies. I mean, these guys, super strict college.
Yeah.
Came to Halloween, mum's the word. Went to seminary, very conservative, Bible-believing seminary. Halloween, no, not a problem.
Interesting.
Never heard a word about it. And then I'd go down south and vacation down there, and I would let my kids actually go trick-or-treating down in like Myrtle Beach and stuff like that. And then you start hearing like people frothing at the mouth about it. And I would hear a little bit in southeastern Pennsylvania when I lived there once in a while. But I even went to spend 2 years in a super strict church. I mean, KJV only, suit and tie, tapered haircuts. I didn't even know what a tapered haircut was, to be honest. They came and told me one day, you need a tapered haircut. I'm like, what is it? Like, I don't even know what you're talking about. So they were that strict. Yeah, it might be like your beautiful haircut. So I said, I didn't even know what it was. They never had a problem with it. My wife grew up in a super strict Christian home in southeastern Pennsylvania. Nothing.
Did you grow up
like
in a neighborhood, or was it pretty rural?
No. It was, 6 to 9, I lived out on a dirt road, walk a half mile to the bus stop every day. And there was nothing but fields and...
So like trick-or-treating there, was it...
No, we didn't trick-or-treat there.
Okay.
We didn't start trick-or-treating until we moved to Shavertown, from what I remember. And in Shavertown, our houses were like 2 driveways width apart from each other on the whole street. And we would just turn out on the street. And we would just go. You would just trick-or-treat in your immediate neighborhood. You never really ventured out from that. It was just there.
Okay, because when I was in Coshocton, Ohio, I don't remember Florida too much. When I was in Coshocton, Ohio, super rural area, there was no like trick-or-treating.
Right.
I don't think our church that I remember did any sort of trunk-or-treat type thing. So what I'm saying, and then when I was older, it was Cleveland area. It was all suburban, metropolitan type area. So there was neighborhoods. In Coshocton, we couldn't see our neighbor.
Right.
They were so far away. What I'm saying is, I don't think, or to my knowledge, like a trunk or treat type church Halloween event was like a rural type thing.
Right.
Basically, when I moved here, I was like, oh, trunk or treat. Yeah, my grandpa's church does it in Elkhart, Indiana. Right. Rural, So like I never heard of like even the merging of the two. I don't ever remember my church having like costume night or any sort of Halloween type party. No, not that I recall my youth group growing up or anything. I don't think there's anything like that.
It was for us growing up, it was truly one of the funnest days of the year. We could not wait for Halloween because we got free candy.
Yeah.
And the only thing they would tell you about was, hey, watch the apples, because somebody one time slipped a razor blade, and then you would hear they inject it with drugs. And so you'd always, every time you got an apple, and you'd always would from somebody, and you'd look it over like so carefully to make sure nothing was wrong with it. And then maybe just say, they would hand out apples sometimes. And you just say, no, I don't want to eat it. Yeah, they would poison the apple, whatever. I don't know. I mean, you'd hear these rumors as kids. So you just didn't really bother with the apple, and who cared, because you had the Snickers bars and the Almond Joys and everything back then. I mean, you actually got candy bars, not little pieces of candy. Like it was just kind of a different day. But yeah, for us, it was always like a great day. And
did you guys buy costumes, or did you just make them yourself? Or
sometimes we were. Yeah, I mean, we were growing up, the Vietnam era days or just after, so we would dress up as soldiers.
Okay.
A lot of times we would just go make our own thing up. Our parents weren't too involved in it. and it wasn't one of those things where your parents walked down the street with you. You went yourself. Like you just disappeared, and an hour and a half later, or whatever it was, when all the doors started closing, you were usually the last kids on the street out there.
Yeah, okay.
You know what I'm saying? When no one else was out there anymore, and it seemed like no one wanted to be bothered with it, we'd go home. You know, but it was fun, and I never heard, you know, anything bad about it. And then you hear it's the Devil's Day and Satan Day, and so I looked up the history of it. I'm like, it's not. It wasn't. It was a day. It was more of a superstitious thing, actually. Like in the pagan, before Christianity came over, they felt 1031 was the time of year, the day when they put all the sheep back in the pens, and they were getting ready to hunker down for winter. And they considered, you know, it's getting dark. You're heading towards what they consider the dark time of the year. And they felt that 1031, that the veil between the physical world and the spirit world was really thin, and that spirits could somehow enter into the physical world. Then they were superstitious about vengeful spirits. They were superstitious about what might happen. So they were looking more for goblins and ghosts, spirits, fairies, things like that.
Is there usually a full moon around that time of year?
No, not always. It depends. The full moon just cycles all different times of, you know, throughout the month.
I just think because like that always, everyone always acts a little crazy.
Yeah,
the animals always act a little crazy.
Well, I'm sure full moon sometimes is on Halloween, but I don't think, no, it's not necessarily always. But anyway, so that was kind of the thing of it. So then what they would do is they would dress up, and they would be wanting to kind of trick the spirits. Like if a spirit was coming to get revenge, they would try to dress up like the spirits so they wouldn't be recognized as human. Because again, it was more like this big superstition thing that they would do. And then they would go to house like the poor people would, and they would call, hey, we want a soul cake, and you know, things like that. Yeah, whatever. And they would get food, actually. So
soul food.
You know, the soul food. Yeah, that's probably the original soul food right there. So they would call them soul cakes and stuff, and it was always on 1031. Well, Christianity came in, and I'm saying, man, 1,700 years ago, 1,600 years ago. I mean, Christianity came in and said, hey, you know, we're not going to do this. In fact, when I looked it up in Wikipedia, Halloween, the definition of it, it was defined as a Christian holiday. Halloween, is the eve of All Saints Day.
Yeah, okay.
So for the Catholic Church, right, they celebrate their saints, which we don't as Protestants, but I mean, that was what the Catholic churches then, they kind of made it into a Christian thing. And then eventually through the immigration of like the Irish and the Scottish, it came over to the United States where kids would dress up and kind of go door to door, the trick or treat kind of dealio. Yeah. And then that eventually became a wider spread thing back, let's say the 1920s to 1950s, became a more widespread thing till now in the last 80 years. I mean, it's become pretty much something most communities are going to observe. Now, I don't know if the Amish community would observe it, but I'm saying, you know, in the secular Yank world, you want to put it that way. Yeah, I mean, they just always did. But it wasn't like a devil holiday. No. And there was nothing that I read. In all the articles I read nothing to suggest that it is.
Yeah. Yeah, when we would go trick-or-treating, we'd always, you know, be a soccer player, and we'd wear that summer's soccer jersey or whatever it was. And because that's the outfit you had. You wear if it was nice enough, you wear your shorts and you put your soccer socks on, you walk around the neighborhood.
Right.
I mean, I was the third out of 4 kids. I had an older brother and sister, and, you know, they'd put on whatever.
Right.
And go get candy. I mean, again, I lived in a neighborhood with a like big high school, a big middle school, big elementary school, just a big school system. So there's like tons of people out and about. It was a big like community thing for sure.
Oh yeah, when we were out, I mean, the streets were full of people, and you'd always go at dark. Like you didn't go in any light. It was like when it got dusk, you couldn't wait. You were just waiting for that to get dark. You were out the door, but usually by 8:30, I mean, we'd all be home and we'd all be looking at the hall. We got that.
Yeah,
day,
no, we would organize our
good.
candy, just dump it on the floor and trade with your brother and stuff, and that's exactly what we would do.
Yeah, it was exciting, and I look at it as from the innocent perspective of it. It was just free pillaging of the neighborhood for candy. What was wrong with that? What they were doing in 600 or 1000 AD has nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I look at that kind of stuff like, okay, well, if you want to say that 1031, you know, Halloween is a bad day because in 800 AD, they were whatever, you know, worried about ghosts and spooks and ghouls and stuff like that, then I'm going to say, well, then don't celebrate 1225 because December 25th was every bit as pagan. And the church did the same thing to 10/31 Halloween as they did to Christmas.
Yeah.
You know, they came in and said, well, we're not going to celebrate this witch named Bircha flying down your chimney. We're going to celebrate Christ's birth because it was a pagan day and they were Christianizing the pagan day. Right. So that's how December 25th got into us. Of course, for us, this has got nothing to do with us. I mean, 1300 years ago, what they were doing in Italy or Germany has nothing to do with our December 25th. Our December 25th, Christmas trees were pagan. It's nothing to do with us. We're not worshiping the fertility god. We just decorate them up. I remember I called him my adopted grandfather. He would always be bent out of shape about Christmas trees. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe it was way back when, but that's not what it is today. You know, so I'm not worshiping. It's the same thing as I've heard this, like yoga stretches are good. So when I've had a bad back at times, you know, I've done yoga stretches and then I'm told, like, if I bend down and touch my feet, you're worshiping a false god. I'm like, what?
Yeah, no.
Like, what are you talking about? I'm not worshiping a false god. I'm just stretching out my back. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not attaching all this like spiritual significance. But if it is something that upsets you, I would just go back to Romans 14 and say, look, to one person, one day is good. To another person, the same day is not a good day. Everyone make up their own mind before God. Don't judge the other people for it. And, you know, like somebody asked me, you know, well, what about my kid dressed up as a witch? I explained what my view of it is. I said, well, I wouldn't do it, but, and here's why I wouldn't do it. But I'm not here to judge people. Like, I'm not here to judge or throw stones at what kids wear, what costumes. It's just not me.
No, that reminds me, you know, you talk about the superstition and everything, and that's where like the fear starts to come in.
Right.
And some people love that, like, feeling of fear and jump scare, and I know you do. I know you like scary movies, right?
Do. Absolutely.
I'm on the other end of the spectrum. I hate that feeling. I absolutely hate that. And I think in a very real sense, Satan uses fear and doubt. You know what I'm saying? So, and sometimes when that gets into our mind, it obviously it's no good. So I personally, that's why I stay as far the heck away as I can from scary movies, because I don't want that. And I know I'm thinking about it later, and then I'm like, I hear this like clicking in the house. I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm not alone anymore. It's like, and then I start
Jason
thinking about it.
With the hockey mask is
he's here to get me. It's like, well, no, and this is what I think of every time. It's like, well, no, that's that fear mentality. Yeah. Then that's where they get it with the music and movies and whatnot.
I never, like the Exorcism movie, I never watched. I try to stay away from the demonic movies. They're not the kind
especially those,
that I'm really into. And do I think and appreciate some people pointing out that there's a dark side to Halloween? Yeah, I mean, the world makes a dark side of everything. There's a dark side of the phone. There's a dark side of Netflix. There's a dark side of everything. And yes, I mean, going down the road, there are some displays I find grotesque, to be honest with you.
They all live on my street.
I don't like that. Right. I don't like, I've seen them. Trust me. I don't like it either.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not my cup of tea either, but that's not what I'm doing. And that's not what my kids were dressing up as pirates and bumblebees and going and having a good time, you know, when they were kids, not that. So yes, I mean, I think in anything, like, it can be pushed to an extreme or something else. I just look at it. I don't think there's inherently wrong with the day. And I've heard oftentimes it's a devil worship day. I'm like, well, if it's a devil worship day, they're doing a crummy job with it, because I've never seen them out there. I've never seen them out there celebrating it, to be honest with you. I mean, I've never heard, hey, did you hear what went on at the Union Cemetery today? You know, there's a bunch of devil worshipers out there. I've never heard of it. I'm not saying it wouldn't happen. I'm not saying witches wouldn't come out and use the same day. I'm just saying that has nothing to do with collecting candy from my neighborhood when I was a kid. And I personally thank God, I was born on Halloween. I thank God I didn't grow up in a church and made me feel guilty about it.
Right.
To be honest. You know what I'm saying? And to which I would have responded. And some people were so upset. I've been told this: don't tell anyone you're born on Halloween. Tell them it was Reformation Day. I'm like, what? I'm like, well, yeah, that everyone knows what that day is. You know, and that's the day Martin Luther put the thesis on the, 98 or 95 or whatever the thesis up on the church door. And so it's considered Reformation Day. And I'm like, I don't think people really associate that. I was just born on Halloween. I'm not afraid to say it. I'm not embarrassed of it.
You don't have control over your birthday.
Yeah, exactly. Well, look, Paul, read that verse in 1 Corinthians 9:22 through 23 and what Paul said.
22 and 23 says, this is the NLT actually says, when I am with those who are weak, I share their weakness, for I want to bring the weak to Christ. Yes, I try to find common ground with everyone, doing everything I can to save some. I do everything to spread the good news and share in its blessings.
Right. So I'm going to do everything that I can to share the good news. I've become all things to all people, is what he said. And I think, like, you look at our Trunk or Treat, one of the things I think is such a valuable ministry of the church is this one of the days there's not a lot of commonality in American culture these days. Mm-hmm. They seem, I mean, we just tend to want to fight about everything anyway, you know, from the Star Spangled Banner or whatever. There's not a lot of things that everyone gets together on.
Right.
Halloween or trick-or-treating is one of those things that most communities and most people, they get it and it's relevant to them. And that's why it's a good connection point between us and the community to have people come to the church to shake hands. I mean, I saw people in church after a trunk or treat that I haven't seen in ages. I talked to other people that said, hey, I need to start coming to church here. I don't have a home church right now. We had a lot of really great conversations. Mm-hmm. I heard a lot from our local school about how much the church helps the school, packing lunches on Fridays and how exciting they are. And they just couldn't say enough good about Eagleville Bible Church and how much they appreciate being there at the event. I mean, I think there's so many positives that come out of it. And that's the stuff that I focus on.
Yeah, no, for the second year in a row now, we've had a youth group Halloween costume party. Last year, with youth group being on Sunday night, I think Halloween was on a Monday. So I was like, oh, hey, let's do a little outreach event. I had a student, this last year, share the gospel. We did categories of costumes, things like that. So, yeah, I mean, I pass out flyers. I distinctly say costume must be church appropriate, blah, blah, blah. So this year, just the other night, we had we combined our youth group with the Nazarene Church, had a party at their place. Invited, Tommy's doing FCA with me at the school, invited a lot of kids from the school. Right. Some of them showed up. To my knowledge, I don't even think they go to church.
Right.
I don't know. I don't think so. People showed up. He had a student share her testimony. It's powerful. But we're using it for good, and we're making sure it is used for good. Furthermore,
right.
I mean, if it's an opportunity to bring everyone together and just hang out and have some fellowship, and if this is your first time in a church and it's Halloween related, but you're hearing this one girl's testimony and how God has worked in her life, and
right. Yeah, I mean, we're not sitting here doing incantations. We're like,
people want to. We're not casting spells and
No, it's nothing potions. Like that. I mean, people tell, well, this and that, not like that has nothing to do with me. That has nothing to do with this event. This event is just kids coming and having fun and getting candy, us connecting, being a good witness, being a good testimony. Other events that aren't celebrated, I mean, Christmas Eve, most people are getting together. That's been another really good one for the church, getting together for that. The Easter egg extravaganza has been another good one. I would say anything sports related would be positive. Wild Game Feast relates to a lot of people. Anywhere where you can kind of connect with your community and build. I really believe in a lot of the gospel is built in relationships anyway. So, but now on the other hand, on the converse side, if it's something that bothers you, I don't think a person should feel like they have to come. I think, no, if it bothers you, then, that bothers you. And you just, if you have doubt in your heart about it, then don't do it. I would encourage you to do it and don't do it and don't feel badly about it.
Yeah,
but on the other hand, you also have to realize the point that we're making in it, that some of the stuff that I hear about Halloween is inaccurate. It's not historic. It's not accurate. It's just shade thrown on it.
It's not the devil's birthday.
It was actually the All Saints Day. They're celebrating the saints. And like I said, the church went a long way to make sure, that we're Christianizing this event. But I also don't agree with the dark side. And the dark side is going to try to lash out and leach in anywhere. Do not play with Ouija boards. Tarot cards, no way. Palm reading, any kind of divining, witchcraft, spells, all that kind of stuff. Absolutely. You know what I mean? I would stay away from any of that kind of stuff. Anything to do with devil or darkness or the occult, I would say, I would also avoid that and agree with avoiding it. And I wouldn't say, that's okay. Yeah, I would say, no, that's not okay because it's dangerous and spiritual enemies are a real thing.
Absolutely.
And the devil's a real thing and demons are a real thing, and I don't invite them to come in. But in something like this, John 3:16 is hanging up on a huge banner. At the event.
Right.
We're passing out Christian literature. Yeah, I think it's a whole different ballgame. So yeah, don't participate in the darker sides of it. So even with, like I said, my I'll carve jack-o'-lantern sometimes if I have time.
Yeah, I also think about the scripture passage, was it Genesis 20:50? The Lord talking to Joseph, what the enemy intended for evil,
right,
we use for good.
Right.
It's like, yeah, you can use a lot of evil out of it. I'm not going to take that away from anybody. Yes, I don't watch the movies, but that demonic, especially the spiritual scary movie, right, absolutely, I don't mess with that. Because exactly what I said, fear is for sure a tool from the enemy, and it'll use that. But can we use that for good? Yeah. Yes, we do.
Yeah, and we do. And I think an overemphasis on demons is not healthy. I remember C.S. Lewis wrote about that. He goes, one of the big mistakes the church makes, a Christian makes, is overemphasizing it. Shouldn't be overemphasizing it. God is strong and God is powerful. Yeah. We look for good in all the things that we do, every day of our lives. But anyway, hopefully you've appreciated this conversation, gotten something positive out of it to take away. We hope that you have a blessed and an awesome week.